Hi, everybody. So my name is Elliot, Ellie. Welcome to the channel. If this is your first time around, I'm a transgender guy, for lack of a better term, and a non-binary one at that. And this here is my friend Niki. Niki, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, just like last time, I'm still Niki. That's all I have to say.
And
I'm joking. Maybe people haven't watched the last streams. Similar situation. I'm also non-binary. I go by transmasculine most of the time. But my non-binary identity is something that I keep to myself more and to other trans people. I don't exactly go out advertising that. I just tell people I'm trans. And yeah, that's it.
And what we're going to do today is actually we're going to talk a little bit about non-binary identities, how we define them, what our personal experience being non-binary is. And my cat is going to make a shit ton of noise in the background.
That's okay.
Because she likes to. Okay, so so this is going to be like a podcast thing where we talk. We both have a very foul mouth. We curse a lot. We mention like anatomical terms by their anatomical names. So if any of that is not cool with you, grab another video where we don't cuss as much. So I've been on testosterone for the past 4 years, and I'm having top surgery in 10 days. So yeah. And Niki, you wanna like introduce yourself and stuff, like what you've done, what you haven't done?
Sure. I've been on testosterone since February 2020, so that's 1.5 years now. I started on low dose, went up to a regular dose since then. Then I've gone down to a lower dose, not because the changes were too fast or anything, but because I'm so androgen sensitive that I need very little testosterone to have very high blood levels. And as we've discussed in previous videos, that can lead to health complications if you are not careful. I have had February this year, so half a year ago, top surgery, double incision with 3 nipple grafts, and simultaneously during the same procedure, a hysterectomy and ovarectomy. So in simple terms, all feminine organs removed in one go. Yeah.
You are like a Ken doll.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
nice.
Yeah. Okay. So we don't state these things because we think it's necessary to have them done in order to be considered as trans or non-binary. It's just kind of I think people watching, especially of the trans and non-binary variety, are going to be extremely curious, and that's actually the only kind of people that I want to share this information with. Like, I don't mind cis people asking me, and I usually answer, but I think when we're talking about these things, like to our own people, it's nice to share this information. Okay, so non-binary. So just before the video started, Niki, you were saying something super interesting about 2 ideas of what non-binary is that are prevalent today.
Certainly. I've seen the past couple of years only recently discussions on how people really identify themselves differently by using the term non-binary. Mm-hmm. For some people, they mean it to say, I want to present myself and I want to be seen and addressed as androgynous. So for me, non-binary means something in between feminine and masculine, or something completely separate from it. But then there are also a lot of people who say, I'm a non-binary woman, I'm a non-binary man, I'm a non-binary lesbian, or like you said, I'm a non-binary trans man.
Yeah.
And recently, with a lot of those discussions on Reddit and Tumblr and whatnot, with transmedicalism and TrueScum and Too Cute and all that, I'm not up to date with it. People have been fighting about that a lot, and things like, do you need dysphoria to be trans? I think those are very interesting points, but sadly, we're just fighting among each other. We're keeping each other down, while people who are very much against trans healthcare and trans expression, gender expression in general, that falls out of phenomenal, but they're having a good day watching us fight
Yeah.
each other, is what I'm
Yeah.
saying. And that's not okay.
Yeah, definitely. They're having a
So
good day out there, especially in like England.
yeah, the
Yeah.
very second the medical system, the health system is involved in that, we have to be really careful. Same thing happened here in Germany. I'm going to be saying a sentence or two about this in a moment. But I noticed watching your videos back in the day, I've been watching for a long time, that you started out saying non-binary and questioning and genderqueer and whatnot. And then you've moved to identifying with more of a masculine role. And of course, some people are going to say, yeah, that's because we're being forced into those roles. Society recognizes only feminine, only masculine, only woman, only man. That's one thing. But I do believe to have seen with you that you've really grown into yourself over the last couple of years. And I think that TRT has made that possible for you. And living in a more accepting environment in Barcelona as well, than rather back at home, where you had much more rigid gender roles.
Yeah, this is something that I'm happy to get into, because it's not something that I usually get to talk about in the videos, because when I do testosterone updates, I feel like people come in to like count the hairs on my chin, you know? And it's totally legit. Like, people want to know what this stuff does, you know? Then there's this whole other journey about identity that started off with me as basically not a very masculine lesbian who wants to take testosterone, which was a weird place to start at, because where I was surrounded by people who were a lot more masculine than me in presentation and speech, in dysphoria and whatnot. And of all the bunch, I was the one who was taking hormones.
Yeah.
And I felt very odd about that. And I think they did too. Because when I started out, I would have days when I would still put on a dress, you know? And
I recall the video where you wore a dress.
I have that video, and oh my God. I mean, I'm glad I did it, because at the time I was fully there. I wanted to do it.
Sure. Yeah.
When I look at it now, I am so painfully dysphoric that I can hardly watch the thing. So how does one get from point A to point B? Like, how do you get from I am completely uncomfortable with being read as male and I am completely uncomfortable with being read as female, all the while calling yourself non-binary, right? Like, how does that even happen? So for me, non-binary started out as a way to say that I don't feel entitled to a trans-masculine identity, because being thought of as a man scares the shit out of me. It was basically, I just had a lot of panic around that, you know? And then being thought of as a woman is something that causes me some pain. And I really needed the space to exist where none of this was like, where I didn't have to choose, where whatever it was that I did would be acceptable, that I would literally have the time to figure myself out. And I was very androgynous presenting for most of that period, because I started out on the lowest of low dose testosterone dosages.
True.
And I stayed on that super low dose for, let's say, about a year. And then I started upping it. I went up to a quarter, then I went up to a half. And now I'm on a full dose for the last 2 years. And I got this thing growing on me, and I got them guns here, and everybody thinks I'm a dude, right?
Yeah.
I just went to dinner the other day, and I was talking to this guy, and he's like, yeah, but you're like 100% a guy. And I was like, okay, if I had a gun to my head and I had to choose between being a man and being a woman, I would choose to be a man. But
Yeah.
as that is not the everyday scenario, I still think of myself as non-binary. But now what it means to me is actually very different than what it used to mean. You know, what it used to mean was I am masculine, but I am not a man.
Mm.
And what it means to me right now is I am a man, but that doesn't necessarily means the kind of thing that you recognize as a man. Like, I'm going to make my own definition for it. I know it doesn't coincide with what the world sees as man.
Yeah.
From a lot of like perspectives, like social or physical or it like roles and stuff. And I really don't want to disengage with my past as a woman. I don't perceive myself as someone who has always been what they are right now. I perceive myself as someone who has actually been a woman for quite a long time and then was something in between and then became a man. Which I think if you say that to a lot of transgender people, it might grind their gears.
Yeah, it's not a very popular take on it, but yours, and that's all that matters.
You know? So what does that mean to you, like in your personal journey?
Yeah, it's interesting to me. We have so many things that are almost identical in our experiences, and others are very different, and this is one of them, because I fully agree with you that I saw a non-binary identity not as a stepping stone, not as something in between, but as a result of being completely disillusioned with being assigned female at birth, being forced into a feminine role, being called a girl, a woman, a she, take your pick. Yeah, of course, at the end of the day, they're butch lesbians, they're masculine women, they are androgynous women, and they say, I'm a woman. Most of them don't call themselves non-binary. So the playing field is very big, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
For me, non-binary from the beginning did mean trans. Full stop. For me, there was binary trans and non-binary trans. And I was aware that I couldn't necessarily look at someone and know what they are. Just like I don't look at someone and I can tell for sure, are they cis or are they trans? I cannot necessarily tell whether they're non-binary or binary, no matter what image of non-binary people have in their head, like alternative lesbians, exactly. You know what I mean.
Yeah.
This image of a young woman who's androgynous, who's masculine, who has dyed hair, piercings, and feminist, whatever. That's things that people come up with, just like they think gay men are feminine.
It's like, I don't want to say a stereotype, but it's definitely a bunch of qualities that are assigned together. Yeah. So
definitely.
So
for me, being non-binary also did mean I had a lot of dysphoria, always did, and I wanted to combat that, but not just socially. Sure, many people say gender is a social construct, dysphoria is a result of that. Yes, there's a very big social component to it. Everyone who has been misgendered can confirm this. But I have had and continue to have issues with my body. That's not social because someone told me that's a woman's body, or that's not what a man's body is supposed to look like. It's just how I've always felt about it since puberty, essentially. Not before puberty. And because of that, I have had surgery. And I understand that I've had very invasive surgery for someone who identifies as non-binary. Most non-binary people would not have a hysterectomy, and most non-binary people would absolutely not have an ovarectomy, meaning not just the removal of the uterus, but of the ovaries, the fallopian tubes.
Yeah.
So in other words, being dependent on hormone replacement therapy in one way or another. For me, I know that's going to be testosterone, certainly not estrogen. Yeah, or the other one, because your body doesn't produce it sufficiently anymore.
Yeah.
I understand that's a very big leap for someone who's non-binary, but I did have a long time to think about it, and I always knew I wanted it because I had a lot of dysphoria about the internal organs.
So it's really interesting that I think it's also fitting that we start with like talking biology, because of all this stuff is all like put upon like layers, right? There's the biological layer, and then there's the personal layer, and then there's the social layer, and then there's what society thinks about all of this. So you mentioned that it's very invasive surgery for someone who sees themselves as non-binary. I think there's this perception out there that non-binary is kind of like a contemplative stage before you do anything, right?
And that's exactly why I said in our last video, some people view a non-binary identity as a stepping stone, as an in-between state. Like a lot of people who know they are gay first come out as bisexual in order to soften the blow, maybe with their parents. Oh no, I could still end up in a normal marriage with a guy and no one will know I like women and I'll give birth to children and whatnot.
And I just
And
happen to have all the meaningful
because a whole lot of
relationships of my
people-
life with females.
Yeah, because a whole lot of people are genuinely bisexual. And I
Yeah.
know that bi people get a lot of shit in the queer community. I'll tell you, I fucking love bi people. Bi girlfriend, come to me, come into my life. No. So I'm very
Bisexual
mindful.
people, you're the best. You take so much shit from everybody and you're the fucking best.
Fully agreed. Fully
Yeah.
agreed. I have a lot of friends who are bi, so I'm experiencing that secondhand through them. Yeah. So I'm very mindful of how I talk about my identity and that of others, because I don't want to make it sound like it's an in-between state, or like I know, no, I'm binary, but I'm gonna tell people I'm non-binary because, you know, that will make it easier to bear for everyone. My personal experience, I live in a very conservative area. Being non-binary has made it much harder than being binary, which is what most people know when they hear transsexual, transgender. They think, oh, male to female or female to male, and they never pay any mind to the gray areas, be that a non-binary identity, an intersexual body, detransitioning, things like that. Most people don't even have that on their radars.
So most people, when I speak to them, like, okay, so Spain is a very open and progressive area. And yet when I speak to people here that are outside of the queer trans community, they still have the assumption that I would want to eventually achieve a perfectly male body, right? Like I would aspire to have a male body, which for me, it actually stops at bottom surgery. It's not that I'm currently not interested in bottom surgery because it's not good enough. I've never been interested in bottom surgery.
Sure.
I've never been dysphoric about the kind of genitals that I have. I've only been dysphoric about how people interpret them.
Mm.
And while I might use like toys or stuff in bed and enjoy them very much, I never felt like they were representing like a prosthesis or a replacement for something I should have had. And that actually for me was something that for a lot of years I thought meant that I was a trans, you know, because I remember the concept of transgender introduced to me in the 90s by Dana International, who was like the singer. She was an Israeli singer, first trans woman to come out of Israel. And they made a huge deal about her surgeries, obviously. And I remember it being explained to me that when you transition from female to male, they construct a penis. And then you do with that. And I never found any solace in that thought. However, when I started learning about intersex bodies, I developed like a serious obsession about the different kinds of intersex bodies that existed, what it meant, like biologically, what are the possibilities, what is the gamut of human reproductive system, you know? And I had a very, I know this sounds like I'm disrespecting the experience of intersex people because they don't choose this and it's something that they're just born with and they get a lot of shit for it. Like a lot of shit, starting with like infancy surgeries and
absolutely.
And if they don't, then always being different and maybe they would prefer to not be different and all the rest of it. But for me personally, the idea that the body can be sexed in a way that is not entirely male or female was actually so comforting
Sure.
that I began to wish that I had been born that way. So for me, what happens with testosterone is the way it affects like the female reproductive system. Like it changes a little bit the size and the function of several parts of it. I am actually so much closer to feeling like I have the genitalia that I was supposed to have than I think I would have had with having a fully functional cis male penis. So everything that had to do with getting a period and being able to bear children, dysphoric as shit. Like, I didn't have very bad periods. I had quite light ones, but they still made me feel like, why is this happening? This is weird. This should not be happening. Like, it's not a like it wasn't a big deal, but it was also misplaced for me.
Sure.
And the idea of being pregnant is as foreign to me as the idea of growing another set of limbs. Like, I have a cold fever shiver running down my spine when people ask me if I ever considered carrying children. It's like, yes, I have in my nightmares, you know? So that aspect of femininity, to which my personal culture attributes a whole lot of weight. Like in Israeli culture, women are mothers.
Yeah.
And in Europe, that's a lot more negotiable and the rest of it. But in Jewish culture, Israeli culture, women are supposed to have children. They're supposed to want children.
Depends on where in Europe. You're in the southwest, so it's more progressive. Southeast, motherhood comes first. I should say this for our viewers. I live in Germany. I'm Greek German, so I get the worst of both cultures essentially. Nice.
Nice. So
that's why we feel so close to people from other parts of the world. Might not know this, but Greece in particular, the whole Balkans, are much closer to Middle Eastern culture than Central or Northern European culture. This needs to be said. More Eastern than Western. I'm glad for it. That's a political, that's a cultural comment, whatever. But even though we live in different parts of the world, we are able to relate culturally a lot through that, I feel, yeah.
The food, the music, the way we call each other like really bad names when we're offline.
Yeah.
Like me and this guy, we just cuss each other out half the time. Yeah, so you also have this, like, I call it honor cultures, right? It's like cultures that are based on very strict gender roles, which have a very big biological implication on on an expectation level.
Yeah. Matter of fact, they actually call that in academics culture of honor rather than culture of law.
Look at that. Huh. That's funny. I didn't know that. I was just inventing that because the concept of honor is so important in Israeli machoism.
Yeah.
It's almost like in a way synonymous sometimes with masculinity. It was a big thing for me when I was a lesbian. So for me, the moment I understood that, I actually didn't want any kind of classically gendered sexed body, in the sense that I did not feel comfortable with reproducing as female, and I didn't have any aspirations to have a fully functional penis. And I realized that testosterone can give me like an in-between moment, you know? I felt like, okay, maybe metoidoplasty, because what they do is basically just liberate a clitoris that's already grown on testosterone. But then I thought, like, sometimes they do that with testicular implants, and that is a thought that is completely foreign to me, you know?
Yes, yeah.
Like testicular implants, whatever form, you know, for me personally, some people need that, and that is absolutely cool. So for me, like, a lot of people are going to say that's not non-binary, that's just variance. But for someone like me who comes from a culture where these things are inseparable, to me, it does mean that.
Yeah, our viewers have to keep in mind not everyone is from the US.
Yeah. Like, okay, I understand that some people grew up in a society where being a man and having a penis are two separate things. That's beautiful. That is something so precious, but it's not the way I was raised, and I would be hard pressed to say that anybody else around me can even recognize that concept. Like I have to explain it. I have to say, like, I have to give like the obvious comparisons, like, oh, what about a man who lost his penis in an accident? What about a woman who can't get pregnant? You know, that's sort of like going to the extremes to like show that this concept can actually exist. But it's definitely, when I talk to Israeli people, they're like, of course you want to have a dick. Actually, the first therapist that I ever spoke to, about gender, when I mentioned that I was considering entertaining thoughts about perhaps investigating transition, the first thing that come out of his mouth, so you want a dick, right? And yeah, I mean, I really, like, I didn't stay with him in therapy after that.
No.
Because it was so obvious that there was nothing, the gap was so big, I couldn't even try to breach that. So that's one thing, that on a physical level, I feel like the body that my brain would be congruent with is not a cisgender body.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have fantasies about having been born cisgender. And I think that had I been born male, I would have transitioned to female to some extent.
Nice.
You know? Like,
Yeah,
I don't
that's
know.
a very unique perspective, yeah.
Because when I think about intersex bodies, and once again, with all due respect to intersex people for their struggles and their not having chosen that, I feel more identified and more aligned with some of the things that the human body can do that I actually feel with like cisgender sexuality, like this way or that way. So that's, for me, that's a very important aspect. And then there's like, okay, the personal level, right? Like, how do I feel? So I don't have a very strong sensation of gender, which was also something that for me didn't speed my transition up in any way. Because I don't have a strong sense of what I should be, in a sense of like, I should be a man, I should be a woman, I feel like a man, I feel like a woman. Like, generally speaking, I just have a sensation of what my body should be like. And that is literally it. Everything on top of that, I feel, is an interpretation of other people of what I'm comfortable with. And when I was a woman, people told me that I was very feminine. And now that I'm a man, people tell me that I'm very masculine. And then I did something masculine as a woman, and people would point it out. And now I do something feminine as a man, and people point it out. And I'm like, would you fucking pick one or not?
Yeah.
You know? But it really feels like whatever it is that is me, whatever like the range of behaviors and ideas and traits that I have, is not, it's not really this like on one side of the fence or the other, you know?
It's very relatable to me. I didn't have a gender identity for the longest time either. I thought it was absolutely ridiculous how rigid people were about this. And we all know that cis people are not very good at even describing their gender identity. They just go, I have a dick, I'm good. You know, that's what most men would tell you. Like, I've straight up been told, I am superior, I have a penis, and things like that. Or all lesbians wish they had a dick. Just weird fucking shit like that. And that's the extent it goes to. They don't really have anything to say beyond that.
I know so
They
many
couldn't
lesbians who are just
formulate what
appalled
being a
by the
man
concept.
means to them.
Yeah.
And let me say, you mentioning intersexuality, I think this great. This is really great, because I was thinking about the exact same thing 2 or 3 hours ago when I went out. What could I say during the stream? It's very, very, very relatable to me that you say you would align yourself more with intersex people than with cisgender, be it as a transition period right now where you're still in flow, so to speak, or also, you know what, if I think about what I wish I would have been assigned at birth and how my body would have developed naturally, it's totally understandable to me. And medically speaking, the definition of intersex for the longest time was birth defect. There's man, there's woman, anything else that falls out of the norm, sick, diseased, wrong, needs to be corrected.
Yeah.
And in medicine, they still say it's either a chromosomal abnormality, so something that's not 2X or 1X, 1Y chromosome, or they say it's something that's undefined genitalia. And that doesn't have to be because of chromosomes. That could be something else. So they say that's intersex. Now, interestingly enough, I can tell you that my endocrinologist, for example, said that some of her colleagues are saying if a cis woman has PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, and she may or may not have slightly elevated testosterone levels, there will be nowhere near male levels, but they will be higher than regular female levels. Then they speak of a hormonal intersexuality, and that's new.
Yeah.
Most doctors don't do that, but she says her colleagues have started doing that, and they're hormone doctors. They work with this all day long. They don't have a political agenda, is what I'm saying. So that was really interesting to me. But also your point that intersex people were born this way, they didn't choose it, absolutely right. So we have to be careful grouping trans and intersex together too much. What we do have in common, most of us are unhappy with our bodies, with how we are treated and viewed by society. And we would maybe like to make changes, and there's many obstacles. That's what we have in common. We are in one way or another, maybe gender queer, if you want to call it that, whatever. Sex queer, if it's physical, if you make the difference between physical sex and gender being in your mind. What else did I want to say? And this intersex discussion does remind me of some tough talk points that we should address. There are some trans exclusionary feminists. They're absolutely not feminists. Suck my dick and balls.
Yeah, it's like
if you talk this way
they
about
call themselves feminists, but then you hear the talking points, and it's actually pretty conservative stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Now, those people may tell you a transgender person might transition to the point of deceiving other people. We will look at them and we won't know they're trans.
Love that language.
And they get all the surgeries and they deceive people. They rape people by having sex with them, and they abuse them by being in relationships with them. Other things they say. And then they continue, but they will always be intersexual because their chromosomes don't match their genitalia, don't match their body. Really interesting talking point, very toxic, but very interesting.
I mean, poor intersex people.
Yeah.
The fuck they get drawn into this? They don't.
Exactly. So that's something that's being said from the other side.
Yeah, and also I've heard hormone replacement therapy being referred to by TERFs as testosterone poisoning.
Oh, nice, yeah.
Testosterone poisoning. I remember reading that once when I was looking for trans resources, and I was like, what's testosterone poisoning? Can I get it?
I want it. How do you get testosterone poisoning? Fast.
Yeah. I don't mind. Yeah. So there's that. And then I think there's a lot of people who are comfortable with their physical bodies and are not comfortable with what society has to say about their bodies and their roles in society.
Certainly.
And they go by non-binary for that. And I remember feeling very disillusioned when I first started swimming in these waters of non-binariness and the kind of community that was forming around back then online. And I remember speaking to non-binary people and asking them, okay, so if an AMAB person and an AFAB person, which is assigned male at birth or assigned female at birth, identify as non-binary, do you perceive them as the same gender? And I got a lot of people telling me no.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, my gut reaction was, okay, then non-binary is not something that I can be. Because I need to be that thing that assigned male at birth can also be.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that. And that's one of the difference between us. Like you said, you try to perform femininity for people beforehand. And I'm not referring to the video of you wearing a dress. I think it's great that you did that. And yeah, you say you feel uncomfortable about that now, but back then you worked with what you had, so to speak. And I think it makes no sense if we consider how sad and self-conscious and angry trans people are often. It makes no sense to beat ourselves up over something like that too, because that's in the past. I said to my coach, who's one of my closest friends, the best time to transition was 20 years ago. The second best time is now.
Yeah.
Totally. And I've tried to internalize that. So I had a completely different experience in that I was always very masculine as a kid and people thought I was a boy. And I didn't correct them because for me there was nothing to correct, but my parents did. And when I was in kindergarten and when I was in school, the teachers did. And it was okay before that, but once a teacher or once my parents said, no, that's a girl. Oh no, she's a girl, she's not a boy. Yeah. The other kids didn't want something to do with me any longer. So I'm saying I was passing as a boy, as a kid, until puberty. I was always wearing boys' clothing. I was crying when my mom tried to force me into a dress. I said, I'll walk into traffic, I'll kill myself when I was like 5 or 6 years old.
Shit, bro.
Made me very, very depressed. And then puberty came and I couldn't hide that any longer. And I've been so fucking dysphoric since. That's all I can say. And I think it's great when some trans people say, I don't have dysphoria, or I don't think you need to have dysphoria to be trans. That's your opinion and that's good. I'm telling you, I've had it. I still have it and I've suffered a lot because of it. And I think that the way we are framing this discussion by, like I said at the beginning of the video, is wrong. We can talk about how we're feeling about ourselves without kicking each other, essentially. And I've kicked myself plenty over dysphoria and what my body turned into. My mom laughed when I said it, but I told her when I was a kid and I just saw myself as one of the boys, essentially, I thought after puberty I would look like Vin Diesel. Like, I fucking love Riddick, right? Like, okay, guys, I know what you're gonna think. He's a little bit more black than I am. That's okay. I don't mean that. Just a little bit. I mean, a buff fucking dude, you know, like fucking tall, muscular, low voice. I thought that would be me after puberty. I thought I was going to grow into a man. Now, I can't say I grew into a woman because I never identified as such, but I have the, if you want to say so, body of one. I mean, if I didn't feel that way, then I would have not taken steps to reverse that, you know? So I have to acknowledge
I just want to say that I Googled Van Diesel just to be sure.
Vin Diesel,
that we're talking about the same guy. And it's like,
you need him in a tank top.
That's a man, honey. That is a man.
That's a fine piece of man cake, and I don't even like man cake.
Yep, that's a lot of man.
In one of my favorite movies, Pitch Black, came out in 2000. he plays a Fury, and Fury is an interdimensional planet, and he's hunting aliens and whatnot, and he's being headhunted. It's so fucking cool. He breaks out of every high security prison. So fucking cool. I love that as a kid. Yeah, and I thought watching Vin Diesel in a tank top, I'm gonna look like that. Yeah.
Definitely.
Spoiler alert, I didn't.
Yet. You might lose all your hair just yet.
Nice. Yeah, that's gonna happen totally. I've had hair loss because of stress before TRT, not since TRT. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So that's one of the differences between us, because I put myself in a masculine role and I wanted to be seen as such. And my parents and my teachers were correct in that. So something that I did end up asking myself is, did I maybe start applying this non-binary label because I felt I wasn't allowed to call myself a man, a trans man, whatever, or binary? I've come to the conclusion, no. But it is a question I've asked myself, because I've had other people suppressing my so-called masculinity. I was a kid. I feel silly talking about masculinity. I just wanted to play with certain toys and dress in a certain way. That was that.
Yeah. It's really interesting, that stuff about, like, as a kid, what kind of group do you basically file into? Because I wasn't a very masculine kid. And I wasn't a very masculine teenager. I was just kind of floating around in the middle, doing girl stuff, doing boy stuff, doing and I wasn't I had only male friends at a very early stage, and then I only had female friends, and I kind of hopped around between these two worlds. And you mentioned that I performed femininity, and I did. In a certain point in my life, I was a very feminine girl. When I was about 18, I got photos of me, long hair, skirts, bras, gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. And I remember that episode of realizing that the body that I had was of a very attractive young woman, and trying to come to terms with that, And within that, I could visually appreciate myself as an attractive young woman. And at the same time, there was something that just didn't fucking click. And a lot of people talk about dysphoria, right? So do you need dysphoria to be trans? Do you don't? Personally, and this is my fucking channel, so I'm going to say my mind. So I don't think you need dysphoria to be trans. You want to transition? Transition. I give a shit. Now, do I think, are you more or less valid for having dysphoria? I think the whole concept of validity is flawed. Because if you can be valid, you can be unvalid. And what the hell does that even mean? How the fuck can you be unvalid as a person? Should you transition?
External factors when you have to focus on the internal.
Yeah, should you be allowed to transition? That's a moral judgment. Why are we making a moral judgment of what another person does with their own fucking body? Oh no, but you'd hurt yourself if you transition. Yeah, people hurt themselves all the time. Part of what it is to live in a modern society is basically to be hurting yourself from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep.
Yeah.
If you're gonna let people smoke, let them transition.
Yeah.
Not that it's equivocal to smoke and to transition, but I just mean, if you're allowed to hurt yourself, then you're allowed to hurt yourself.
Absolutely.
Right? So I never felt I was dysphoric until I started being on full dose testosterone. And part of it was because I was so disengaged with my own body and my own experience of my body that I basically had no access to my feelings. And the more I transitioned and the more acceptance and respect I got from the surroundings towards my now masculine body, the more I could allow myself to look at myself before and basically say, oh my God, I was not masculine at all. Because the funny thing is, a lot of why I didn't have dysphoria was because I had talked myself into believing that I had a masculine body. which is very odd because 5 minutes ago I told you about how I knew I was a beautiful girl.
Yeah, sure.
So
Very,
basically, while knowing that I was a beautiful girl, I had convinced myself that I was also extremely androgynous and that I could present as male and be read as male, just because I was the height that I was and had the shoulders that I had. And now that, I look at it and it's absolutely ridiculous. Like, I look at photos of myself before transitioning at various ages, and I was obviously a beautiful young woman. Like, there was no, it's very hard to see me as a passing male looking at those photos.
yeah.
But in my head, I passed. And
This makes me think of a couple of things, if it's okay if I
yeah. Go ahead.
join you here. This resonates so much with me because in some ways dysphoria has gotten better, in others worse, since I started transitioning.
Yeah.
Now, especially after I've had the biggest hurdles on me, that was top surgery and the reproductive stuff, I've gotten to focus on things that I didn't have the energy to get upset about before. So you get dysphoric about the weirdest shit is what I'm saying. That's something that you have to accept as a trans person. When you make one step forward, it might feel like you make one or two backwards. I too thought that I was a very masculine woman. Now, by presentation I was. For example, since transitioning, my wardrobe hasn't changed. I've always worn things first from a boy, then from a men's section. All good. But of course, bodily, no. And like I said in the other videos, this too, I'm a power lifter. I did bodybuilding as a teenager. Trying to bulk up my frame, get more muscular. Unless you're a genetic outlier, that doesn't happen on estrogen. I've been testosterone dominant for 1.5 years and I still haven't had fat redistribution. These things take time.
Yes, they do.
And this resonates with me so much. I knew that I saw myself as very masculine and that kept me going. That kept me alive. But I know to the outside world, I wasn't being read as that at all. Because when people see what they think is a girl, is a woman in men's clothing, they think, oh, that's weird. That's unattractive. Why is she doing that? I don't like that. But they don't think, oh, that's a girl trying to be a boy. And they don't think, oh, it's probably a trans man. I should be mindful of that, So for me, it really ended. It started and ended with a pair of pants that was straight cut rather than, But bodily speaking, no, I look at photos from before TRT and I think, and I haven't had massive changes yet on testosterone. I've had them very slowly. And still, I look at those old photos and I think, oh God, I look like a girl. And I didn't see myself looking that feminine just by face contour, body shape.
I think it's something that we allow ourselves to notice because it's just too painful to notice while you're living it.
Yeah. So on one hand, I had very crass dysphoria about a couple of things. But on the other hand, there was this split in my mind that said, but you're pretty masculine. So that's a contradiction. Because sure, cis men can be feminine and trans men can be feminine. But on one hand, I had dysphoria about my feminine appearances physically. And on the other hand, mentally, I was so fucking to the end of the masculine spectrum. I agree. It's something your mind does to protect itself.
So I think this is the part of the discussion where we get to like what society views as masculine and feminine, right? Because you and I, none of us presents in a traditionally feminine way, and yet we both claim to have a certain extent of, well, when you say non-binary, you basically include both femininity and masculinity into the mix.
And androgyny.
And that is something that can be very invalidating for a trans guy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And it's a very thin line to walk to say, I don't want to invalidate myself in my identity. But I do recognize that I have this and this and this and that. That's actually very feminine.
And this is something we have to keep in mind. Just like gay people bash bi people the most, not straight people, binary trans people bash non-binary trans people the worst. It's not coming from cis people. There's a bit of a culture war between binary and non-binary trans people.
Hey, it's
And
just
that's
so
so
fucking
painful.
ridiculous, man. It's just like, if somebody wants to be binary and they're good with that, and that's the way they like. I got binary friends, I got non-binary friends. What the hell, dude?
Yeah.
But we do bash each other over this because it does feel like everybody's trying to say my way is the only way to be. Like, okay, I think the same way that some people are cisgendered and they have a very rigid and constructed sensation of who and what they should be.
Yeah.
And some people are cisgender and they'll tell you, I don't feel like anything. And they have a very understanding of what it is they are, and they just don't bother to transition, but they'll tell you this is the typical response that you'll get. If I'd been born a guy, I guess it would be fine. Or if I'd been born a woman, I guess it would be fine. And you're like, really?
Yeah. And the layer that is added to it is really trans people do this to perform for cis people. Like, I'm not a freak. I'm a binary trans person. There's male to female, there's female to male. Those non-binary people, those intersexual people, they're the freaks. I'm normal.
That is very,
so
yeah, that is very internalized bigotry. That is some really bad shit. That is very toxic. And then, but there really, I think there really are, I think there is a gamut between binary and non-binary. Okay? I think on one end of this gamut is like, one end of this like spectrum is people who have a very diffuse and unconstructed view of their gender, and the way that they relate to their body is not one-dimensional. And these people can be cis or trans. Because I've heard a lot of cis women say that they perhaps would prefer to not have breasts, or that they thought about having a penis, or that they don't want to get pregnant, or all these things that we grab onto for dear life as we define ourselves as transgender. So they have like trans moments, and they're cis women. Perfectly cis, have not even considered transition, and do not have dysphoria, cis women. And on the other hand, you have strictly defined trans and cis people who have a very good concept of what it is that society wants them to be, that they fit into that, either because they were born into it or because they transitioned into it. They have a very clear idea of what their body should be, and the idea of imagining themselves with a different kind of body gives them dysphoria. Like if you told a cis guy they're going to lose their dick, the guy goes crazy, that's dysphoria.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, I hear a question from one. Can cis people get dysphoria? Put them on the opposite hormone replacement therapy? Yes. Let them have an accident? Yes.
So someone in my family actually had breast augmentation because she had dysphoria. She felt that she wasn't feminine enough with the breasts that she was born with, and she had breast augmentation. We chatted.
Yeah.
I think cis people feel a lot of dysphoria. I think a lot of what cis people feel that makes them transphobic is actually the dysphoria that arises within them when they think about somebody chopping their breasts off.
Yeah.
You know, otherwise.
And I tell you,
yeah,
especially now that masculine women and butch lesbians have been on the radar more, and a few of them have said, I'd like to get top surgery, but no, I don't identify as trans. I find that brave. I don't personally have to understand it because, like I said, I've never seen myself as a woman, so I'm not going to take up that space anyway. I find it brave to say there's this defining characteristic that I'm not comfortable with. And absolutely everyone, my partners, my family, society, my doctors give me shit for it. And it's probably not legally or medically possible, but if it is, I'll do it. And it's going to be something that everyone associates with cancer. That's the only option why a woman wouldn't have breasts.
Yeah.
But I want this. And no matter the backlash, that's me being happy. And I find it very brave. And we see this with non-binary people. Let's contrast you and me again. You took so long to get to the point where you said, I'm thinking about top surgery.
Yeah.
I might have top surgery in the future.
Yeah.
I need top surgery. It's happening for you now. It's so close, and I'm so happy for you, Ellie. I have my revision a couple of weeks after you have your initial surgery. I'm more nervous for you, more excited for you. I cannot wait for it to happen. You deserve it. And dancing, yeah. And you see, you took so long to get to this point to say, this is what I need. And boy, now I need it. It can't not happen. It can't wait. While I said, the very second this becomes possible, I'll do it. I need it. I was fucking suicidal over my body, you know? That's a dark place to be. And some non-binary people are like me and they say, I need top surgery. Many are like you and say, I don't need it now, or I don't think I will want it in the future. And then as they grow, maybe they go on T, maybe they go on E, maybe not. And as they make more experiences being, you know, accepted into their role, or maybe they only meet, maybe they're only met with arguments and with fighting, and people won't let them live their gender identity out. Matter of fact, being they grow into it like you have, like I have.
Yeah.
And then they might say, I'm going to do it at a later point. And another thing that I've heard non-binary people say is, I don't want a mastectomy like trans men have. I don't want to have an masculinization surgery. I want to have a breast reduction.
I actually went through a stage where that was something that I considered strongly enough to go get consultations for.
I haven't, because I said if I show my tits to someone, it's going to be the last time, because they'll be gone after that. Like, I'm not going to a fucking consultation to kid myself into believing I'm going to make this better by getting a smaller cup or something. Like, I don't want a feminine breast, period.
So I had a very long period where I would look at top surgery without testosterone, which was something that I was like, I took a lot of time in my life to research that. And the other one was very severe breast reductions. And the idea for me was twofold. First off is that I was not comfortable with the chunkiness of male bodies. I couldn't see myself in one. And the second one was that I wanted to be able to control how feminine or masculine I present. And I knew with a masculine chest that was impossible.
Certainly for some non-binary people, they say there's always a focus on being a son, female at birth, and being uncomfortable with femininity, but definitely they might end up too masculine for their liking, and that's going to give them dysphoria as well.
That was a big fear for me. I was genuinely afraid that I was going to be too masculine, that my voice would be too low, that I would be too hairy. That was a big one.
Because you know what I remember, Ellie, from one of your videos, you said, if I'm going to grow a beard, I'll stop tea. I don't care how I feel. I don't want to grow a beard. And now for a couple of months, you've been like, oh, guys, look at my chin hair. Look at what I'm growing here.
I'm so fucking happy about the beard. This is crazy. You don't know how you're going to feel about anything. You don't know. Because when it happened and it's yours, it's different.
Definitely.
Like,
you grow into it in the truest sense of the word. You grow with it. You don't wake up one morning and look completely different.
I'm very happy that it took me 4 years, because I honestly don't know how I would have gotten through it alive and two.
Yeah.
You know?
I wanted to speed up for me personally. You know, I wanted faster. I've been derma rolling my face and oiling it, so I'm growing my hairs. Yeah, that's the state of being for me right now.
I put Rogaine. It does help. It does help.
Yeah. I have problems with blood pressure, so that won't be for me. But
so, and then there's like the stuff that people put on you that comes to social roles. That's very, very strange. It's very strange. So when I talk to people about non-binary, they have this expectation that I would either have like very neutral preferences when it comes to social roles, or that I would have a very evenly mixed
Balance.
balance
Mm.
of feminine and masculine roles. And the truth is, it's not really like that. And I know a lot of binary people who are actually quite a mix, and a lot of non-binary people who you could kind of easily throw into one category if you had to, you know.
Mm.
And the thing where the moment where I had that cling moment for me when I was actually at peace with who I am right now, and I stopped churning this shit over in my head trying to figure out what I should be, and just trying to relax and discover who I already am, was when I was talking to my psychologist, and I was talking to my psychologist about sex, and I told her how extremely uncomfortable I felt with the expectations put on me by lovers to be active in the sack and to be stoned and to, well, stoned for anyone who's not. Is there anyone in the crowd who's not a lesbian? Okay, so stoned, what it means is that for someone who has female genitals to not want them penetrated or touched in any way. And when you're a masculine person, then there's a lot of expectation for you to be uncomfortable with your genitalia, right?
And this is
And
very relevant because a lot of people, be they non-binary or binary, who end up masculinizing themselves at one point identified as lesbians.
yeah. And that's not even mentioning like people who are AFAB transitioning to male, who are attracted to male.
Mm.
Which, my heart goes out to you, because that has to be so hard. That has to be hard when you're still in a feminine body. That has to be hard as you transition, and it sure as shit isn't easy when you're gay.
Mm.
And like for me, recently realizing that I was also attracted to non-binary people, AFAB, who might be transitioning to male, or non-binary AMAB, who might be transitioning to female, or like literally understanding that I'm attracted to more people than just women, had made me really reconsider a lot of these things. But the point that I was going to make is that when I came to my psychologist and I told her, look, I can't have sex with people using my anatomy because I feel like they see me as a woman.
Mm.
And my psychologist was like, okay, you know what your problem is? You got 2 boxes. And you don't tick one of them and you don't want to tick the other. You need more boxes. And I was like, that fixes everything.
This is something we also should have learned early on as lesbians, because that's not gender conforming either. To be a lesbian, to be a gay woman, to dare to have sex with other women, that's, yeah.
But there is a lot of gender conformity that goes within relationships.
Sure.
I've had so many relationships where you do something in bed together, and according to that, like some kind of significance is assigned, or some kind of role is assigned.
Yeah.
And if you're the bigger partner, or you're the smaller partner, or you're the one with long hair, or you're the one with like a motorcycle, then something is expected.
Yeah.
And for me, it was like, if I can have a category of my own where I get to be me but not viewed as a woman, then I can have a sexuality that is so much more diverse. And taking on a masculine role in the bed is something that I am extremely uncomfortable with. I don't want to experience myself as a man when I have sex with people. And I don't want to experience myself as a woman when I have sex with people.
Mm.
it's literally something that if I feel that the partner that I'm with has that kind of view on me, like they view me as a man or they view me as a woman, instead of actually seeing the very specific mix that I am, that means I can't have a lot of intimacy with them. Like I might, there might be, we might play a bit, there's might be like a thing or two that we can do together, but there's no really room for like exploration and a profound connection for me.
Sure.
And that is for me the crux of being non-binary is the physical and the way other people interact with my physicality.
Yeah.
And that is why I think I'm going to die on the hill that I can be a non-binary trans guy.
Certainly. And you know, the point that you raise with the genital situation is interesting anyway, because I've spoken to so many binary trans guys now who don't want to get bottom surgery. And not because they are unhappy with the results, but because they say they are content with what they have. So why give non-binary people hell for this if it's okay for binary people who are normally very hell-bent on, you know, drawing lines, drawing borders? I say the less you feel dysphoric over, the better for you, no? The more you enjoy your body, the better.
If you can do anything with yourself and not be dysphoric, that's a win.
Absolutely. And I wanted to ask you, because you have male passing. I don't yet. I told you this private before. I'm at a stage right now where middle-aged people misgender me very frequently, even when I correct them.
Yeah.
So it's not just first impression. They are making a point, is what I'm saying. Elderly people tend to read me as a young man or as a teenage boy, and that's okay because I'm 28. I know I look very youthful, and that's something I have to deal with.
Yeah.
Like man or woman, I look very youthful. I have to deal with that. So it's not helping male passing, is what I'm saying, but I can change it. And I'm also very short. That's not helping it. But children, call me sir, call me mister. Say, oh, look at that man over there. So that's very nice. Animals, they go by smell. They go by dominant sex hormone. Like if a dog is aggressive towards men, he's aggressive towards me because they don't care about height and beards and all that. They just smell the hormones. And I've gotten my my last blood test from June on 2 pumps of tea, 20 milligrams. That's not a lot. That's relatively low dose. I'm at 969.1 nanograms per deciliter, so that's very high. That's why I said I'm androgen sensitive. I'm on a low dose, not because I want slower changes. I want fast changes, but I can't take more because I'm probably gonna drop dead. Yeah, and that's the point, guys. Puberty is a process, and you are inducing puberty with this. I've had very high testosterone levels, very high, to the point where my endocrinologist was begging me to drop them somehow for 1.5 years now, and I don't look like a man registered trademark. I look like a little boy on a good day or like a little girl on a bad day, you know? You can't force that. And this brings me to something that I wanted to ask you, because you have male passing. I don't yet. Are you still misgendered? And does that feel worse than it did before transition or an early transition? Now that what you see in the mirror, what you see on photos, aligns closer to where you want other people to see you?
That is an amazing question, because I am still misgendered. And the people who misgender me now are the people from the Israeli community who know or have known me before. Mostly from the Israeli community, because they know me online. So they knew me as I got here, and I was presenting basically as female to 2.5, 3 years ago. And then also like Spanish people who've known me for that time, or people from way back. I actually had a friend from Israel text me 2 weeks ago in female. Yes. And at, I recorded a voice message to him, and I really went as low as I fucking could, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And he still, and I corrected him. And what it feels like to be misgendered right now is a very mixed sensation of understanding that this person in front of me has a notion of me that is only partly based on the present.
Oh yeah.
And that they have very present in mind the fact that I transitioned, and they are not well practiced in this kind of thing.
But strangers don't misgender you any longer. You pass or smell everywhere you go.
100%.
Yeah.
I don't think I had feminine pronouns used for me in the past, I want to say 2 years, but it's probably more like a year and a half.
Certainly. Are you being read younger than you are?
Yes, but not as young as I was read in the beginning. So in the beginning, I was read as being underage, like 16, 17.
I'm sure the beard helps, no?
Yeah, and the beard helps, and I've got enough mass on me to pass as a 25-year-old.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of a big deal because cis men my age who, I don't want to say work out, because when they work out they can grow to be monsters, but who don't actively try to not have muscle mass, like cis men who do anything, they get kind of chunky.
Absolutely. And if it's all right with you, I'd like to take off my shirt at the end of the video and make a point about
Please
this.
take your shirt off. Go ahead. Go right ahead.
I'll do it at the end of the video, okay?
This is a shirt taking off channel.
Absolutely. And you'll be taking off your shirt in a couple of weeks, and everyone will fucking fall in love with you. I know it's gonna look so fucking good. You've got the frame for it.
So I actually want to comment on that. Taking my shirt off. This is amazing. So I'm doing a project with a photographer who's going to take photos of me before and after. And we did the before photos, and we did nudes because I wanted nudes. I wanted nude photos because first of all, I'm in great shape. I really do think I look good, and I'm very fond of my body, and I wanted nude photos. You know, they also happen to be before photos, but they're also just nudes to me. You know, and I was doing kung fu naked on a rooftop at sunset. It was fucking gorgeous. I was doing flying kicks. I was in the air. Beautiful, gorgeous. So that's about nudes. And then we did like the classic, you know, I take my shirt off, stand in front of a wall, take the side pose, take the front pose, so we can do the comparison pictures later. So there's going to be comparison pictures up there. I don't know if I can put them on Instagram, but if I can't, then I'll put them on YouTube. Yeah, because I kind of, yeah, I feel like at this point, when I look at myself, I don't think I pass 100%. But other people don't seem to have any doubts.
So your experiences with misgendering are really for people who've known you before and are not making the effort they should be making, but you don't get that painful experience of people reading you as a woman when you...
It sucks kind of equally when they misgender you anyway, because what is this about? It's about you not really counting as a dude to them.
Absolutely. You know why I asked this question?
Why do you ask this question?
You know that I told you about having an experience with a neighbor a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Which you were also pretty upset to hear about. And I've had another one since then that was worse. And I'll tell you about them because they are different. So I was leaving the house a couple of weeks ago with my dog, and one of my neighbors, who I rarely see, flags me down from across the street. And yeah, it's, hey, can I talk to you? I was like, yeah. And he approaches me and he says, don't worry, your mother allowed me to talk to you. Which is the weirdest introduction you could make. I was thinking, how does he know my mother? But I'm not 5 years old. What? I had no fucking idea what that was about.
Yeah.
I'm starting to think in a split second, what is this? Is this going to be about me being trans? What is happening here? He says, he continues, yeah, about how to address you. And I mean, this is absolutely about me being trans. And I'm thinking, would my mom come visit me and talk with my neighbors about it? No. And I'm starting to sweat a little bit because I barely know this guy. And he says, so you are Miss Panoyas? And I say, no, Mr. And he looks at me, what? Say, Mr. Panoyas. And he goes, but I thought you were the daughter of my mother's name. Say, no, I'm the son of my mother's name. He says, oh, well, you don't even have the same last name. I say, no. And he turns around and says, okay, Miss Panoyas, have a nice day then. And I'm saying, what the fuck was that? And I call my mom, right? I walk the dog, and the first thing I do is I call my mom and ask her, what was that about? Because I said, Mom, could it be that you talked to this guy and he asked you about your daughter or something and you corrected him and said, no, my daughter is not my son? That would be totally okay because I told her to correct people. She says, no, I haven't done such a thing. What happened? Turns out this guy went to my mom's workplace a couple of times some years ago and knows her through there. We have no idea how he came up with that. That was super fucking weird. And I don't know if that happened. Super weird. I don't know if that happened because he knows me from before, or if it would have happened anyway, had he just met me, that he would have called me Miss so-and-so. I think the situation in general was so bizarre that I can't really tell you what that is about. That was super weird.
That is transphobic harassment. That is some actually that is bullshit.
My mom said to me,
fucking bullshit.
My mom said to me, he's a little bit slow and he has a mentally handicapped son that runs in the family, and that I should be mindful because maybe I completely confused him with what I was saying and there was no ill intent. I don't know that. It was a really, really weird situation to be in, totally Twilight Zone, because I had no idea why he was talking to me about this to begin with. And I still don't know what the point of the discussion was.
Cis people are gonna just...
That was that. I told you when it happened, you were the first person I told because I needed a reality check. Super weird. The other thing that happened a couple of weeks ago was very painful to me, actually, and I didn't even talk about it to my best friend because it was just, I was having a stressful week because of other reasons, and then that one thing happened and that made me feel so fucking ridiculous, essentially. So our viewers here don't know that, you know it. I'm a musician and I'm a music teacher. And yeah, I give lessons, obviously, and I write articles and whatnot. And I love researching the history of music instruments and music styles. So what I'm saying is, because of that, because I've been putting myself out there online and in person, there are some people who know my name and think they know me, but I don't even know that they exist.
Yeah.
Like with you, people watch your videos and your journey, and they get a sense of who you are and what you are, but you don't even know that they're watching. This is a problem with social media, but also with the internet in general. I'm saying this because this explains how I ended up in the following situation. If you guys know what it is, my main instrument is bouzouki. It's a Greek instrument. Love playing it. Love fixing it. Love repairing it. Love the history of it. Like I said, I write articles about it and whatnot, and demonstrate the different ways to play it. And because of that, I've met other musicians who played the same instrument, namely in the US, in America, Greek Americans, you know, and there's this guy that I've become friends with, and he's been supporting me on my journey and everything. And he's mentioned me, my existence, my musicianship to a couple of his friends and a couple of people he's met in college. He's in college for music. And when someone follows me on Instagram or on YouTube, I tend to give them a follow back if they're also a musician, just to hear different things. Doesn't mean I know them personally. And a lot of those people never introduce themselves to me. So I only know the screen name. I'm on Instagram the other week, just browsing a few things, and everyone will know this really annoying feature. If someone starts a live stream, at the top of your app, this flashes, and if you accidentally click on it, you join the live stream, even if you are clicking on something else. I'm accidentally joining the live stream of some guy I barely know. He's a friend of a friend. He's playing bouzouki in his stream, and that's why I stay, because I want to watch. He sees that I've joined the stream accidentally, and he says, guys, Niki has joined. You need to check out her channel. She is so amazing. She's the most amazing bouzouki player. My heart sings, right? I've posted that I've had top surgery and everything and pronouns and all that shit. He hasn't seen it. I can't blame him for that. He didn't do it to hurt me. But I think in that moment, how fucking humiliating. And then a couple of people who I also didn't know fucking knew who I was, start talking to me in this chat. Hey, Niki, I love your videos. I love you so much. Do you still give lessons? Can we book something? And I just quit, right? I closed the app. And that really hurt me, even though he just didn't see the other posts about my top surgery and whatnot. He tried to be so nice to me. You know, he said so nice things about me. But he really hurt me by essentially humiliating me in front of all those people, completely erasing the progress that I've made, and this very visibly queer and visibly trans presence I've had on my personal social media. I'm very open with it because otherwise the misgendering never stops. And he only tried to be so sweet to me, but what he said ended up hurting me so much. And I felt so ridiculous about that I accidentally ended up in his live stream. And he called me out in a positive way, he thought. And then all the people jumped on it and said, yeah, I know her. She's fantastic and all those things. Or a couple of years ago, I had a lesson with her. And it just kept, you know, everything on the same mountain is what I'm saying. Everything shoveling onto that. That I closed the app and I sat down and I felt so fucking miserable. And I felt so ridiculous about it because I knew he wasn't trying to hurt me. He just didn't have the updated information, but I didn't talk about it to anyone. I felt too ridiculous to talk about it to my friends. That's the worst instance of misgendering I've had, and it was accidental. And I'm sure if I told him how I feel about it, he would be very apologetic, but I never told him. I just left it at that.
That's rough, man. That is so
That's
rough.
because it was about something that means so much to me. Not some random person who barely knows me talking about me, but he tried to say something nice. He tried to get views my way, traffic my way, students my way, all that thing, and that completely fucking backfired. That was the worst instance of misgendering. And I've had them where I was cornered, where I've insulted, where I was beaten for it, and none were that bad. I've had very hateful and hurtful things said to me where people wanted to hurt me, and he only wanted to praise me. I don't know if this is going to be relatable to our viewers here, but because it's tied to this niche interest that I have, this very peculiar instrument, and what I end up making money with, what I spend all my time with practicing and researching. That was the biggest fucking step to the face. That was really bad.
You know, I think it's like it's very relatable from like a professional standpoint. Because if anybody,
someone spoke
about if anybody had come and introduced me as she's the best physical therapist I know. Because I think on a professional level, you just don't want to have that called into question. there's just a shameful exposure of the fact that that might even be a thing, you know, where as a professional, you're not supposed to bring a lot of personal shit to the table. And all of a sudden, it's like basically like they pulled your pants down in front of everybody.
Absolutely. And what you said about machismo and masculinity in Israeli culture, guys, it's hard enough being trans. It's hard enough having to come out again and again and again and correct people. If you don't, the shit never stops. So that's an apple you have to bite into, so to speak. You have to swallow that. The transition period early is very rough. And that's not even talking about people discrediting you after you get male passing, like they might do for you. In the early process, you have to keep correcting people. You have to keep fighting them. So I say, it was hard enough, and it still is hard enough, having to come out again and again to so many people I knew back and then, and so many new people I'm meeting now. Like, fucking don't say I'm not trans, you know? I'm not going back. I'm not going to be introduced as a woman or as a she to anyone. I fought so hard to be where I am. Yeah, let people not recognize me as a man, not respect me as one. Let people have negative opinions about trans people. But don't fucking say I'm not a trans person. Don't say I'm not a trans man. I've come far enough to deserve this, at least this identity. So no, I'm not going to let it fly any longer. And this is why
on that fucking heel.
It's so hard being trans in Greek culture. It's also hard in German culture, but it's more difficult in Greek culture. Don't fucking
Didn't not come this far to have anybody take that away from you.
Exactly.
I'm really glad you shared that shit story, because I think a lot of people go through stuff like that and they don't even know to say what about that was so painful.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's really important that you give voice to that.
I meet people, like I said, it's really 50-50. A lot of people view me as androgynous and try to avoid pronouns, and that's very preferable to reading me as a woman. Like I said, early transition period, so to speak. I get misgendered a lot by people, and they don't give a fuck when I correct them, and that sucks because it's embarrassing. Like, I got my COVID vaccination 2 or 3 weeks ago, and the lady there who was doing the paperwork said, you didn't check the mark whether you could be pregnant or not. And I said, that's because I'm not a woman. And she looks me up and down. Guys, I fucking had a hysterectomy. I'm not discussing this shit, right? She looks me up and down and says, what? I said, I didn't check the box because I'm not a woman. It doesn't apply to me. I know that trans men can get pregnant and some of them want to. I know that non-binary people do. I said, I'm not a woman because the checkbox said, if you are a woman, is there a chance that you could be pregnant? And men don't cross that. That's why I said it. And this fucking asshole checks the box no. I said, no, I'm not a woman. You don't check a box there. It says, if you are a woman, could you be pregnant? I'm not a woman. And like, it's not about identity politics at this point. Do you guys have any fucking idea how ridiculous it is to fight so long to have these surgeries? There's no fucking chance you could be pregnant any longer. And people go against you with a fucking checkbox to make the fucking point that they don't respect you.
Fucking assholes, dude.
And that's why I say this was really upsetting, because she didn't even try to make it seem like she respects me on a professional level. The other instance was worse because it was personal, you know, it hurt my feelings. It made me feel sensitive. I don't feel sensitive about a lot of things, but that really did make me feel that way. Yeah.
Okay. So sorry, but we're gonna have to kind of finish now because we're running on an hour and a half, and there's a space issue. Please take your shirt off.
Okay. I'm gonna set up my tripod one moment, yeah? we're done here. And this, guys,
this is
the
gonna be
reason why-
special. This is gonna be beautiful.
Nice.
Okay.
The reason why I offered to take my shirt off is not to show off my surgery. Ellie has seen this, you guys have seen it, but to
I want to
showcase.
see it again.
We want to see it again. I have very high testosterone levels. Have had for a long time. I'm not muscular. I'm a powerlifter. I'm decently fucking strong. I don't look masculine, right? I haven't had the fat redistribution. I haven't had an increase of muscle mass. I do everything for it. Check my training log. I'm decently strong. I'm very
Trains like a
dominant.
fucking beast.
You see? It's not a feminine body, I would hope. But it's not super masculine.
I wouldn't, calling that a feminine body would be quite a stretch of the term feminine.
Yeah. So you
Quite
can
a
see
fucking stretch there.
Yeah. I still have my hips. That hasn't TRT hasn't done its magic there yet. As for fat distribution, it's all over the place because I had very heavy PCOS and endometriosis before my hysterectomy.
Yeah.
So I had both a feminine pattern in the hips and ass and a masculine one in the stomach. I've always had that. So I'm fat all around. But what I'm trying to say is, guys, very high testosterone levels, very active lifestyle. And I still don't look like it. So
it just takes time.
It takes time. I'm doing everything I can for it, and I don't look the part. So if you don't look the part either, it comes one day.
You just keep at it. You just keep at it, bro, because you're gonna be huge. You're gonna be bigger than me, that's for sure. Like, I'm not trying to get big.
I will be very big.
Yeah.
I will be.
Like the way you're going, I'm just gonna stop at my genetic comfortable zone. I haven't changed my training. I haven't changed my eating. I'm on like a medium kind of T spectrum thing.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to get big. I'm gonna be like a little faggot that's in shape. You're gonna be massive.
I will be massive because I train for it and I eat for it, but I need male puberty to finish. And I'm still 1.5 years. Because people, this is something that we don't think about. 1.5 years on T means you're what? Like a 13 or 14-year-old boy. Some 14-year-olds have a beard. A lot still look like they're 7 years old, you know? True. So the same thing applies that does to cis people. It takes time. All my friends are 6 foot tall, 300-pound powerlifters. We're training the same way, we're eating the same way, and I look like a little kid. I'd be lying if I said that doesn't hurt my self-esteem a little bit, but I know I'm putting in the work, and in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, I'm going to look like them.
You're gonna look like a monster. You're gonna be a fucking mass monster.
I'm gonna be pretty massive, yeah. Barring some gross fucking accident where I'll never be able to train again, I'm gonna look pretty massive, yeah. And I want to. I want to look twice as big as Vin Diesel. So Vin Diesel, if you're watching this,
watch your back.
I'm coming.
All right, guys. So that's all we have time for today. Thank you so much, Niki. Anybody wants to comment, go ahead. Tell us we talk too much. And much love to everybody out there. If anybody wants to go on and do an interview, let's do it. I love this shit.
It's so easy to talk to. You won't regret it.
You say I'm good at this.
You are very good at it.
Shut the fuck up, bro. I love you. Bye-bye.